All right, thanks for coming in. If you want to turn on your cameras, you can. You don't have to if you don't want to. Were you folks able to pick up a Glowflakes kit? Do you have the, did you manage to get the supplies from us? Yes, I see James, Ann, and Julia. I see a kit for you folks. And if you didn't, that's okay. These are easy things to find, and you can definitely follow along with a couple of things from home, even if you don't have the kit. The electronics are a little tricky, but they're available easily. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got inside the bag. So out here, you should have a cardboard circle. Get a cardboard circle. You should have a length of copper tape. This is our electronic tape that will conduct electricity. See if you've got a length of copper tape in there. You also have 2 or more squares, one of tissue paper, one of regular paper. Do you have those? And the most important parts are going to be the batteries. This little coin cell battery and a blue LED. Hopefully you have those. Got a couple of screen freezes from you, so I'm hoping. So one thing I want you to do before we get started is I want you to test your LED and battery. I want to make sure these work. So the LED has a long end and a short end. You can see that right there. That long end is the positive. That slightly shorter leg is the negative. You're going to want to put the short end on the bottom of the battery, the bottom being the sort of rough side of the battery, and then the top is the cap that has a little plus symbol for positive. Let's see if I can show that to you. It's not super clear, but the short leg goes on the bottom, the tall leg goes on the top, and if you put that together, it should shine a light. I see a couple of lights on already. Great work. Hopefully that works for you. Yes, excellent. Battery's working, LED's working. That's great. We can go forward. And if for some reason they don't work, let me know. I have more batteries. I might be able to get you some at the library. I'd put it on hold just like an item. Anyway, hopefully you have the instructions as well. So the first part of the instructions is making paper snowflakes. I think this is probably a craft that many of you have done before. But what you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of paper. I'm going to start with the regular paper, the printer paper, and we're going to cut that into a snowflake for the first part of our Glowflake. All right, so the way that this works is you are first going to fold it in half to form a triangle. It goes tip to tip. Then you're going to crease it along the edges to form a triangle. Doesn't have to be the most perfect thing that you've ever made, but you're going to form a triangle just like this. All right, I see some triangles out there. Perfect. Next step is going to be we're going to fold it in half again. So corner to corner to make another triangle. Go corner to corner and you should end up with a smaller triangle. Again, doesn't have to be perfect, but we're trying to get a smaller triangle out of that. All right, if you've got your folded in half triangle, and if you're using a piece of paper from home, you can always cut it into a square. I'll show you a trick for doing that. If you have a piece of paper from home, you fold the paper in half, to make the triangle, and there will be a bit of leftover paper if you're using a standard piece of paper. And you fold it in half, there'll be this leftover bit. This is if you have a paper at home that you want to do for this, because you can do more than one snowflake on this. And then you would just cut off that length of extra to get your first triangle. You can do that with any size paper, but these ones are made especially for the size that are going to fit on our little circle there. So if you're just joining us, this is our part of our first part of the snowflake. the white piece of printer paper, fold it in half into a triangle, then fold it in half into a triangle again. All right, third step is a little bit trickier. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take a corner and you're going to fold it down it's a bit hard to do upside down. Let's see. Let's try. Okay. Supplies out of the way. Take the paper. You're going to fold it like this into thirds so that there's an overlapping corner facing down. It should look a little bit like this, where you have this extended over the bottom, and then the line, the crease, is sort of down the middle to the top. Go ahead a minute. You're going to do that with both sides until you end up with something that kind of looks like a little triangle starship here. So I fold that over. And it's going to look like this. Here's the back side. You can see these sort of sticking out there. And here's the front side where you can see your creases. I have never, in my history of making snowflakes, had these two sides be exactly even. So it's not going to matter so much if the folds are perfect or not perfect. It'll still turn out beautiful, trust me. So now that we've done that, you're going to need a pair of scissors, because the next step is going to be clipping off part of this paper. If you don't have a pair of scissors, you can wear these. You fold them back and forth until they get nice and loose, and then you can tear them off. But if you have a pair of scissors, you can use them to cut off those flaps. I'll make it look from the side so it's easy. You can see those. I'm going to cut those off if you can. All right, so what you have now should look like a triangle that's a third the size of the piece of paper that we started with. Now we are going to make cuts that will become our snowflake in the paper. So the first thing, because we want a hole in the center of the snowflake, is we're going to cut the very tip of the top off. So let me flatten that. Let me cut that. So when I open it up, there'll be a hole in the very center. This top is going to be the center point of the snowflake, and everything around it is going to be symmetrical, because this is the 1/6 of the snowflake, and the snowflake has radial symmetry, meaning each of those sixths around it are going to be the same. So if you've done this and gotten this far, you can go ahead and start making slices. And that's like little cuts that you can make, or even whole chunks that you can cut out. Don't be afraid to go a little nuts at this point. You can always find more paper to make more, and it doesn't even matter if you hack off whole pieces of the corners here. I'll show you. We're going to cut off this whole edge, or even into the parts that get a little weird, like along the bottom where it's uneven. You can still cut that part too. Cut a little snip in there. It's all going to turn out. So you can keep cutting whatever design you want. Feel free to use additional paper other than the sheet that I gave you as well if you want to make more pieces of the snowflake. I'll give you a minute to go ahead and make slices on yours too. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Have you all done this part before, the self-made snowflakes? All right, so we're going to go ahead and unfold that. We can still see the folds from the middle, and let's go ahead and open that up, and we'll see what our snowflake looks like. All right, there's ours. And there's that radial symmetry that I talked about. Since we clipped the top off, there's a big hole in the middle. And then all of the snips we made are replicated 6 times symmetrically around the snowflake, so that each little corner is the same. Go ahead and see if you can snip yours and get it to turn out. And then, once you've done that, we're going to do exactly the same thing with the tissue paper. Tissue paper is a little bit lighter, it's less dense, but the process is going to be exactly the same. I'll go through it again and let me know. But feel free to interrupt me if you're having problems or need some advice, but I'm just going to show you how this one works too. So, fold it in half. So you've got a triangle. Fold that triangle in half. Second, smaller triangle. Then we're going to do the third folds. It's folded into the middle and down, so there's an overlap, and the same on the other side. So that we have our little, to me it looks like a little paper starship. You can see where the flaps overlap. That's where you're going to cut or tear those flaps off. And we can take advantage of the symmetry by cutting little snips. I'm going to cut the top off again so we get that hole at the top. And then I'm going to make other snips. See what happens when we open it up. All right, and this is a little more finicky. I hope I just didn't kill mine by cutting the top too much, but I'm going to try to open it up and see if we've made a tissue snowflake that will go on our Glowflake. I may have snipped the top a little too much, but I do have the workings of a tissue glowflake here. I'm looking quick to see if I can open this top up too. I may have cut it a little too dramatically. Oh, there we go. That's just fine. All right, there's that snowflake as well. So if you've done these, and you can also decorate them with crayons or markers or what have you if you want to, but if you've done them, set them aside. We will apply those last. You're going to need either a piece of glue or a tape to do that eventually, but for right now we're going to set these aside to do our electronic portion of the Glowflake to make that going. If anybody has any questions about the snowflake portion, feel free to jump in. I can help you along with that. Hopefully you're able to follow along and make that. It can be a little bit finicky with the small frilly parts. So for the second portion, you're going to need your cardboard circle, and we're going to start with the LED. So what we need is we're going to have the LED poked through on one side, and then the battery assembly is going to be on the back. So, and you may need some steady adult hands for this. What you're going to want to do is poke the little prongs of the LED through the cardboard. It's going to take a little bit of force to get that through there. And in some cases, I think this might be too hard. So if you have a pair of scissors that you can spin a hole with, or a thumbtack, I have a thumbtack. Might make the process a little bit easier. So you're going to want a hole in the middle, or two holes very close to each other for the LED. So I'm going to make two very small holes. I'm going to take the LED and put these little leads, these are the metal forks on the end there, through the cardboard circle. Okay, so I've stuck that through. You see how the legs are coming up on this underside here? There is a long one and a short one. When you poke it through, try to make sure you know which one is which, because you're going to leave it. Okay, so we push that through. And you've got the two leads. Now, I'll grab the battery to test. Once again, you're going to put it through the two little legs of the LED. You can see from the way it's lighting up my workspace that works, which is meaning that this one on the bottom is the negative, and the one over here on the top is the positive. You're going to lay those flat. I'm going to push them flat down on the, well, as flat as you can get them, on the cardboard circle, if you can do that. See how those are now pushed down to where I get them. And we're also going to want to label them. So if you have a pen or a pencil handy, you can make a little minus to indicate the negative lead and a positive to indicate the positive lead, because we are going to need to know which side is which when we work with our electrical tape here. And get your electrical tape ready, because that will be the next step. We'll be using this copper tape to create a little miniature circuit. If you're intimidated by the copper tape, and this step seems like a lot for you, you can actually abridge the project here, put the battery in, and just tape it together right here. Tape the two leads to either side of the battery, tape the battery down, and then you would have a glowing LED there. If you don't want to worry about the copper tape to make a switch, this is sort of the simplified version. You can tape that together like that, and finish the electronic portion there. I'm going to show you how to do the copper tape. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a piece of copper tape underneath the positive lead. So find your positive side, take a piece of copper tape, maybe about 1 inch or so long. I can just rip it off like that, or cut it if you have the scissors. They do have a sticky underside, so if you have little fingers that can get in and pull off the backing, we want to get to that sticky underside and use this like a piece of tape. There we go. So you're going to have that little piece. You're going to put it by the positive, underneath the positive lead there, for about 1 inch or so. There. See how I've got a string of tape next to my positive lead. Push my positive lead on top of that, and I'm going to want to use another piece of tape to secure my little positive wire to my other piece of tape. The whole idea is that the copper tape is conductive, so if it is touching the copper tape, it can conduct electricity. I'm going to get a very small piece of the copper tape now and clip that off. And I'm going to use that to tape on that positive metal piece there. Always the finickiest part, trying to get this to open up. There. And apply that over the metal lead. Stick it to that copper tape. So now it should be, you see how that leg is taped down over the copper tape. This has now become a much longer wire. This is kind of like a positive wire here because it can conduct electricity. All right, so for the negative lead, we are going to tape that down with a little bit of copper tape going about 1 inch the other way. So let's grab that. All right, so there's our negative lead. We're going to take this going this way. And what's really important here is that these copper wires don't touch each other, at least not yet, because if they touch each other, that'll complete a circuit and there's no battery in there now, so nothing will light up. But I've taped down the negative lead. I've got the positive lead taped down. Now what we're going to want is a piece of paper, maybe about an inch or so long, a little rectangle. This can be cut from anything in the bottom of your instructions or anything like that. It's going to be, even this is probably a little bit too big. I can make that small. Piece of paper like this. And we're going to use the rest of our tape to tape over the top and the bottom. I'll demonstrate that. This is going to become our switch. So we'll peel the copper tape and tape it over a small piece of paper. Definitely finicky to try to peel this copper tape, but once you get it started, and the smoother the copper tape is, the better, the more likely it is to work. But I understand how that can be tricky. So I like to lay it down as I go rather than tear off full pieces. And then, all right, so I've got it going on one side. I'm gonna flip it over there. And I see a question saying it's missing its LED light and coin battery. I'm really sorry that happened. I don't know. We did see. I know I picked up a battery off the floor, so I know at least one kit lost their battery. And yes, I can get you more. I've got limited extras to be supplied. Also, if your copper tape runs out and you don't have enough to make it work, I can get you more of that. Let me go ahead and drop my email in the chat there, and I can set that up just like you're picking up a 3D printed object or a whole. Yes, feel free to email me and I'll make sure that you get any pieces that you were missing. I'm sorry that you're missing those pieces. That does make it hard to do. So this is what our piece looks like now. This is our switch. It's got two sides with some copper tape on it. It's important that the tape doesn't touch itself, either by running over the edge or by completely looping around. You see how mine ends about halfway there? And this side is at the full length, but stops here at the end. So now what you're going to want to do is we're going to do a little more testing. So get your battery. You're going to want to put positive side down on the positive lead there. So just kind of upside down on the positive piece of tape. You're going to use this little piece as a connector. This is our test right now, and we're going to press the connector to both the battery and the negative line. Looks like mine is working. It should, if it makes a connection, the LED should light up. This is always the trickiest part because even the littlest thing can sort of set it off. If the copper tape is touching itself, if the copper tape is bent, any of those things, or if the lead is not touching the copper tape well enough, it can mess up. Now that I know mine works, I'll kind of show you what this looks like. I'm going to tape this end right here. To become like a little flap. Just use regular old tape to do that. All right, so now that this is a flap, I'm going to put the battery here. Let me secure that. Again, we're going to do that with tape, positive side down. You don't want to cover the battery entirely with tape because the metal part, the copper tape, has to be able to touch the battery. So I'm only going to tape a corner of this battery to get it held there. And then now I have my flap over the battery. So when I press down, it's not lighting up. So I have to see where my trouble is. Let me try that again. If it doesn't work, we're going to back up. So let me test it again. Positive side on the battery. Let's see. Oh, there we go. It wasn't getting good enough contact with my negative battery lead. Yeah. I know what I want. Make sure those tapes, see how I'm rolling it slowly, it makes those tapes touch. When I hit the battery, it lights up. All right, now I'm going to secure the flap in place and the battery. Keep in mind, if it all goes wrong and doesn't seem to work, we can always take the tape up and just tape the metal leads to the battery and have a light that way. But if this goes well, we should get a little switch. See how when I press it there, it lights up on the other side. Now, since we have a working light, we can add our paper elements. I'm going to, for this part, you can use tape, you can use glue. I like roll-on glue, so that's what I'm going to use. But if you have tape, glue, or any other adhesive there, that should make it work. I'm just going to do a little circle around the glue. Stick on, oops, I want the paper first. I'm going to stick on the paper. Then I'm going to do a little bit of glue on that part of the snowflake. It won't take much because the tissue doesn't have a lot of mass. It's very simple and won't take much for it to stick. I'll put the tissue snowflake on top there. I like to kind of fluff it up so it has like this kind of a 3D, almost like a blossoming flower type look. But you can do whatever you want. And then with our switch on the bottom, press that and it lights up. This is more or less what it should look like. You have a little snowflake that glows. If you want to get particularly crafty, you can punch a hole right in the top and hang it up, or just leave it down so when you walk by and you push on it, I'll find the right spot. Let's see. This one doesn't work as well for that. Mine has to be pushed from the other side. You have a thing that lights up. You can also take another piece of paper, put it over, mark where your switch is. Mine's just turning on because there's enough pressure. And then use that as a button press to turn it on as well. I do see some glowing Glowflakes out there, so I think we've had some success. You got it to light up? Yes, that's working really good. Nice job. Anybody else has any questions about that or wants some help troubleshooting? The most common problems are getting the copper tape to line up, making sure the battery is at the right side and everything is touching correctly. Make sure this wire is taped down and this other wire is taped down. But it should be pretty sensitive to that connection and lighting up. See, I can just tap right in here and it still lights up. Does anyone have any questions about this craft? I am looking forward to the day that we can do it all in person, so we make sure that we all have enough supplies on hand and we can grab things if things are missing. But hope you like your Glowflakes. Feel free to experiment with them. You can add more layers of tissue or paper if you want to, or decorate it with crayons and drawing at the same time. It's just plain white paper, but it can be anything you want to.